Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third floor of the Murphy building. Building stuff, whatever you want to call it, mass communications building. We're in the third floor Murphy booth. Once again, we're going to be here every Monday, Wednesday, hopefully at this time, 3:30 for the rest of the semester. But let's get into it. More trade rumors are circulating around the NBA, and one that was a big one last night that really popped out of nowhere and kind of took people by surprise. I would say it definitely took me by surprise, considering the team that was involved in it was DeMarcus Cousins and the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah.
So, odd partnership, kind of makes sense. The Suns do have some prospects and assets that might entice the Kings to make a trade, but when we saw the package deal, when it was reported, the three assets that were involved in this were T.J. Warren, out of NC State. It is his second or third season in the
third,
league.
yeah.
It's yep. Yeah. And then there's Alex Len.
Yep.
Former Maryland product, 5th overall selection out of there. And the 2017 first round pick for the Phoenix Suns coming up in this loaded draft. So to me, it confuses me as to what the Kings really want here, because you've heard rumors about even the Boston Celtics being the potential matchup. That's the one we've been hearing going back and forth at the Celtics, but the Celtics are almost a part of anybody. But it was for players like Jay Crowder or an Avery Bradley or a Marcus Smart, and both of the Brooklyn picks, which is they're way better assets than what the Phoenix Suns have to offer. And you think that if the Phoenix Suns were to trade one of their big men, it would be a Marquise Chris or a Dragon Bender, or even try and send over Tyson Chandler, get rid of that expiring deal or whatever may have you. I find it strange that that's who they ask for. I mean, there's Brandon Knight, Eric Bledsoe as well, and then there's Booker, Devin Booker that you could also think of. There's PJ Tucker, other filler guys that you could put in there. Why do you think those names are coming up there?
To be honest, I'm not really sure, because it like you said, it really doesn't make much sense. You know, if you're Sacramento, getting Warren and Len is almost a wash. It's almost like you're just trading Boogie for the draft pick.
They're nowhere near the deal. I think we've seen Alex Len at his best. I mean, how much better is he really going to get at this point?
The ceiling was a little bit higher for him a couple of years ago. He was kind of getting a little more play time. But now when you draft two more big men, you already had Tyson Chandler. It's kind of saying, hey, we're not really going to probably be going with you. You know, so the deal doesn't, in that sense, wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Even the Kings, too, with all the centers they've had.
Yeah,
they Willie Cauley-Stein, Georges Papagiannis, who they drafted back in 2016, this past season. And you've seen it, and there's frustration in the front office between Boogie, Vlade Divac, and Kings ownership. After he sent out the tweet when they drafted Papagiannis, I don't know how to correctly, I'm botching his name like crazy, but the Greek center, and it's just got Boogie frustrated because the direction of the Kings, they just don't know where they're going. They let Rondo go in free agency. They didn't bother re-signing him, even though he had over 10 assists per game, even though there was no options besides Boogie. I mean, I guess you could say Rudy Gay, but Rudy Gay's gone now. And there were even talks about hearing DeMarcus Cousins getting that huge extension, over $200 million worth of a contract. But now it kind of seems like they don't want to be moving forward in that direction. But let me ask you this.
It's also interesting, just to cut you off, is that he says he wants to stay in Sacramento. That's weird to me, because I don't know why you'd want to stay somewhere where there's nothing there. There's no shot at them being a playoff contender even in the near future, even with these draft picks. So it's strange. I mean, unless he's chasing the money, whatever it is. The whole thing doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I think the consensus is that no matter where DeMarcus is going to be playing, I think he will be getting that max contract regardless. But I think he's trying to be a good sport here, trying to be mature. You don't know what Shaq's probably telling him to say, because Shaq is also a minority owner of the Sacramento Kings. Also had problems with the original team that drafted him in the Orlando Magic, and he left for the Lakers. But I think here it's not so much the problem that it's the Phoenix Suns that that are involved in this. It's what they're offering, and you can think that if that's their best offer and that's what they're gonna give up, I think there's multiple teams that can actually do much better than that if they're not going to. And one of those teams are the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, and back to the Suns. I think part of this is you mentioned you got Brandon Knight, you got Eric Bledsoe, you got Devin Booker, you got some Kentucky stars, maybe a Kentucky
Tyler
tie.
Ulis too.
Tyler Ulis, maybe a Kentucky tie with Cousins.
4 Kentucky guards.
Right, maybe a Kentucky ties with Cousins, but on the same token, I mean they're kind of looking at where they are now and say, hey, we're not very, very far off from being a playoff team. They might just be a boogie piece away from being a playoff team, and they're trying to bite off a little more than they can chew, maybe, and try to not form a super team, but they're trying to go out and get him for stuff that doesn't add up to what Boogie's worth, and to try to build a playoff team. And I think that Sacramento especially has to be smarter because that deal just doesn't really work.
And it also has to be smarter for Phoenix because if you're thinking about it, you really drafted Dragon Bender really high up in this draft, right?
Yep.
And so you're pretty much putting a lot of stock on the future with him and Marquise Chris too, because they're both 2 top 10 picks.
And then you throw Boogie in there and you throw things out of whack. It's kind of like what happened with Willie Cauley-Stein.
What's going on?
What is he?
Exactly. So what's going on with Dragon's development? Is he going to go to the D League? Do you try and trade him away to another team? Do you not value him as much as you might have thought you did when you first drafted him? So it's really strange to see this whole situation with the Phoenix Suns, and because they haven't really handled situations like this well before, when they have an extra amount of players at one position. So they have a lot of big men now. It's the same situation where they had Isaiah Thomas, Dragic, and Eric Bledsoe, where they got rid of Thomas and Dragic. Arguably, you could say they're both definitely better than Eric Bledsoe right now, even though they did bring in Brandon Knight. They probably kept the worst of the 3 guards at that time. So they have to really calculate these moves slowly and make sure they make the right deal here. But I do think if Phoenix is able to pull this trade off, I think they should.
Yeah, on Phoenix's end, that's a great deal. You're not losing much, and in either.
It is a stock draft, but then again,
it is a stock draft. But you have to be a little smarter too, because Golden State just goes out and gets Durant, right? They're fresh there. You know those guys are going to get contracts. You know they're going to be together for the next big chunk of time. You also don't want to waste deals.
No.
You're not. It doesn't matter who you are. You could add Boogie. You could add 2 other stars. You're not going to contend with Golden State. So you don't want to also for it to be a wash.
You don't want to handicap your team for the future.
Right. You're handicapping your future. You're handicapping right now. You're wasting players' primes, and so there's a lot more that goes into the deal than just the fit themselves. But if they could pull it off, you'd have to say, yeah, do it, because to lose just that to get Boogie,
But who knows? Also with this, that 2017 first-round pick isn't bad. But say you bring in Boogie like that, right? So you still have a lot of guards on the team. You got Brandon Knight, Bledsoe, whatever. Okay, say this as a possible option. You take on Tyson Chandler, right? You try and put him in another package deal. Maybe Tyson Chandler, Knight or Bledsoe. Probably Knight is the odd man out here, and then even Bender. That's a pretty good value of talented players that you could probably bring someone back, because you have your point guard for the future in Bledsoe. You have Booker as your shooting guard. Small forward position is going to be open up since DJ Warren's gone. You keep Marquise Chris as the 4, and then you have Boogie at the 5. So you really have something to work with here, and you have some decent bench players. It's not that bad, and you can fill up salary cap space because you have some players that aren't on the most expensive contracts, because Chris and Booker are still going to be on their rookie deals. So I think there's going to be some flexibility to move here, but in the end, if you're the Kings, I don't think this is the best deal you can get, and I think you can get much more than that from the Phoenix Suns if you're moving forward, and if not, possible targets are the Magic, and the Celtics are always going to be in it. But last question, really quick question before we leave and end this subject. Do you think Boogie gets traded by the deadline?
No.
Okay.
I think he's finishing the year at Sacramento.
You think he finishes the year in Sacramento, he gets traded around draft time?
Because the Sacramento front office is really bad, but I don't think that they're that bad that they're going to give him up for a draft pick and 2
Vlade Divac is more than capable
players.
of making a decent move.
But,
so
I think
then again,
unless something drastic changes in the next couple of weeks, where you see Boston say, hey, we got some of our picks that, actually we'd like to give them up for DeMarcus or something like that, then that changes things, and they even take a shot at the East. You know, they take a shot at the one.
More,
if they
more
grab
than
him.
fair, because you still never know where that lottery pick is going to end up.
Right.
So I think they are also going to wait right around draft time, maybe even after free agency, to make a move for DeMarcus Cousins, because you don't know what's going to happen at the end of the season or throughout the rest of this season. Okay, that'll wrap it up for that. DeMarcus Cousins to the Suns, a possibility, but doubt it'll happen if it's going to stay at this package. I'm Martino Puccio, Matt Lasella. We'll see you next time.